Well, it looks like dipshit Trump is going to do exactly what the world has expected he would do. He is going to leave the war in Iran, and he's not going to bother to negotiate or fight to have the strait reopened. And they're, the thing about ground troops, we know it's already been said that if they sent ground troops in, there would be other blockages that the United States also would be reluctant to do anything about. So they're in a bad position. And it's a position of their own design and their own choice and their own stupidity. This is what happens when you elect a narcissist who has nothing but hatred for anyone that disagrees with him, who then surrounds himself with yes men and thinks he can do no wrong. And this is very much the far right attitude around the world. Because they've never had power, except in some very, very extreme instances in the past, they live in a fantasy world thinking if they could just get their way, they could fix everything. Trump and Hegseth and Rubio and Besant and all the other losers finally got their way, and they are bringing to the end the petrodollar and USA as a hegemon through their own stupidity and through choice. What did Trump say? This is a summary from the BBC. U.S. President Donald Trump lashes out at the UK and other countries, telling them to go get your own oil from the Strait of Hormuz. You'll have to start learning how to fight for yourself. The USA won't be there to help you anymore, just like you weren't there for us. Poor little crybaby Trump. Listen, I've covered this in a previous video, but I will summarize. The United States made bilateral agreements with the GCC countries that the United States would protect them. In return, those countries would recycle their profits into U.S. treasuries, making sure that the United States would never fail on their debt, making them a very wealthy country, propping up the American dollar. And what did they do with that? They spent themselves into oblivion. They now have, I think it's going to be $40 trillion in debt, and now they're crying. What is supposed to happen in the Middle East according to the agreements the United States made? They're supposed to protect those countries. What did they do instead? They brought war to those countries. Their military bases have been destroyed, the American ones. And then because the United States and Israel attacked certain things in Iran, all of these countries suffered with Iran attacking, their oil and things like that. And of course, the strait has been strangled. It is all the fault of the United States and Israel, 100%. They caused this. And now Trump wants to walk away because he has no way to win. If you send in ground troops, you're going to lose. If you try to negotiate, it's not going to work out in your favor. You're going to lose the negotiations. So his talk is that he's just going to walk away, and it's NATO's fault. All of this is NATO's fault because they didn't help us in our hour of need. Listen, NATO is not there to get involved in wars of aggression unless it's on the defensive side. There is absolutely no reason for NATO to get involved, and NATO absolutely should not get involved. This is an American foreign policy decision. Now, yes, it's fucked up the entire world. Good work, Hegseth. You went from being a shitty daytime host to being one of the people that fucked up the entire fucking world. Congratulations, you loser. There's your crusade. So, people might say, that this is hyperbole. Look at what happened to Great Britain in the Suez Canal. They couldn't handle it. The United States had to come in. And from that point in time onward, Great Britain was the little brother, and the United States was in charge. And then Great Britain faltered and faltered and faltered and faltered ever since then. The USA today has walked into it. They have their own Suez Canal. They can't handle it. They can't handle the negotiations because their president is a moron, right? They can't win the war, much like just about no one could win this war, right? It's a stupid war. Only one country can possibly fix this, and that's China. I'm sure the GCC countries wouldn't be 100% in love with the fact that China could provide defense, which they wouldn't need much of considering that Iran and China are allies. But they do already have in some of these countries small bases, as far as I know. And these countries have been, in some cases, allowing oil to be sold for the Chinese yuan. So it's not that far away. That it's not inconceivable. And you have to ask yourself, well, who else can reopen the strait? Because war isn't going to do it. Only negotiations are going to do it, right? Now, all of this leaves Israel kind of sitting on its own because the United States, they've abandoned the GCC countries, in my opinion. They're going to be abandoning Israel soon because there's nothing that the United States can do. If he puts boots on the ground anywhere over there, the Republicans will never get elected again because it will be a slaughter. So Israel is going to be on its own, and Israel has been a bad actor in the area, putting it mildly, and it may be the end. You know, they have their nuclear weapons. We all understand that, but they don't have any support in the world at all. Much like the United States no longer has any support. The United States has been lashing out at the world. We've seen Hegseth's talks about no quarter, which generally means just killing anyone that they come in contact with, taking no survivors. The man is an absolute menace. They've been throwing tariffs around and trying to boss around not just their enemies, but also their allies. No one wants anything to do with the United States anymore. And I think that all of the world is looking at the petrodollar right now and looking at what just happened and looking at how the United States is treating them. And they're seriously thinking, we will support you in getting rid of the petrodollar. And this is a really, really bad situation for the United States because part of the petrodollar thing is about buying those U.S. treasuries. And they've got $10 trillion of debt to roll over this year, and they need people to buy that. They just screwed over people that had agreements generally to do that. Even though they're loose now, some of the agreements are kind of like don't exist anymore, but it was still going on. So who's going to buy that? You know, the United States is your enemy. It doesn't matter what country you are. If you're Greenland, if you're Canada, if you're the UK, if you're in Europe, if you're a GCC country, if you're Iran, if you're China, they're your enemy. They've generally declared this either with their tariffs or their speeches about how they're going to take over different countries. So I don't see anyone, but it's going to hurt. Trust me. Because this is a huge balance of power shift that we are witnessing in real time right now, unless something dramatically changes, right? We have to remember, Trump is the president. Trump is the guy that ordered this war. And Trump is the guy who is now saying, go get your own oil. We're not doing it for you. As if he's been doing some type of favor to the world. This is how psychotic and stupid he is. So I do believe that, you know, it might not happen overnight, but the petrodollar is done. The U.S. treasuries are going to be in potential trouble. The problem is when people get scared, they go to U.S. treasuries, right? So they might still keep buying them. But how long can you do this with a company with so much debt? You're going to have to demand a higher rate of return. And that alone will cripple the United States with the amount of interest they're already paying. So stupid, stupid, stupid people, full of bravado because they have the world's largest military and they think because of that and they are finally in power, they can do anything they want, and they found out they can't. And they are destroying the United States, absolutely destroying it. They had no... How do they not have a concept that, hey, if we screw over, these countries, that might be it for the petrodollar and we'd be in big trouble? They don't even know this. They're so filled with America is the best that they don't even understand that America, had schemes that made it the way it is. It didn't just happen, but they think it just happened. And a lot of them are white Christian nationalists, and they think it just happened because they're white and Christian. No, there were bilateral deals behind the backs of your supposed allies that kept the train running. And now you fucked it. So we will see what happens. But it looks like this is what's happening right now based on Trump's own statements. But you can never trust him because he's a habitual liar. And he changes his mind constantly. He's a mess. He's a hot mess. Good luck to everyone. If this is the case, we're all going to need a lot of luck, and there's going to be huge economic repercussions around the world that we don't even know about. And you can't listen to the economists. I saw one economist on Bloomberg the other day saying, this is just a small thing. Whatever's going on in the Middle East, we've had problems in the Middle East before, and it's going to be fine. We don't expect much problems. There might be slight inflation. And then there are other people saying the price of food's going up by 25%. Because of lack of fertilizer and the fact that now transporting everything is going to be so much more expensive. So who knows, right? Now take that uncertainty and add to it the fact that the petrodollar may disappear and the United States is ending as the world hegemon. And what's going to happen? We don't know. One thing for sure is that China loves Trump. They couldn't imagine a bigger gift. Same thing with Russia. And I wouldn't be surprised if Putin didn't get on the phone with Trump and tell him that, maybe you should do something about Iran, knowing it would be the end of the United States as a hegemon, right? Someone had his ear. Was it Hegseth? Was it Putin? Was it Netanyahu? Was it all three of them? Three idiots. Well, one's an asshole and the other two are two idiots. Anyway, that's all of this. It's their Suez Canal moment. We'll see how it turns out for them and for the rest of the world. Thanks for watching.